What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts Sports live stream. This week's topic is the topic I'm pretty sure everybody's talking about, and that is NFL free agency. Frenzy would be the perfect word to describe what's going on in the NFL. If you take a 1 second break, you've probably missed like 3 or 4 signings. So we thought it was a perfect time to get together and kind of talk about some of the reactions to some of the releases, the trades, the signings. Joined by 2 members of Team MBS. Of course, we have Ashmere, and then we also have Jeff Barnes, who's a NFL draft guru and also an overall NFL fan, like the 2 of us. Let's just start it off with the biggest signing, of course, and that's the announcement we had of Tom Brady leaving the New England Patriots. It looks like he's going to Tampa Bay, some kind of issue with the contract signing, and you can't do physicals because of the coronavirus. So I want to start with you, Ashmere. What was your reaction to, obviously, number one, Brady leaving, and then also picking Tampa Bay of all places to go play for?
Well, I had a lot of people telling me they thought he would go to the Chargers just because it's in LA and his wife is picky and they want to be in the California sunshine. And I just didn't believe that because I feel like Tampa Bay has a stronger offense. So he wants to be a part of something where in the last years that he's working, it's going to mean something. So I feel like that's why going to Tampa was more important for him. I also wasn't very shocked. I was kind of thinking Tampa the entire time. If he came to the Bay, I was going to honestly give up football for a little bit because that would have been so crazy that him and Jimmy are all of a sudden back together. But for what reasoning? They weren't working in New England. Why would they work here? So I wasn't very shocked just because I kind of agree with the reasonings that he's going out there. So.
And what about you, Jeff?
It's the only thing that surprised me was that he did choose it over San Diego. Well, LA now. Excuse me. I'm still stuck on the Chargers being out of San Diego.
You're not alone.
This sounds foreign to me saying Los Angeles Chargers. Because of the hometown connection, originally a California kid. The one thing about it that shocked me even more than that was that find out there was only 2 realistic offers. And that was shocking to me. You think of the teams that are in need of a quarterback, that some teams feel that they're 1 player away. Tampa Bay seems a little further away. The offensive line still needs to be rebuilt. The defense is being totally rebuilt in this new 3-4 scheme that they've been putting in their I forget the coach's name. It was the Jets.
Todd Bowles.
Todd Bowles, thank you. You think of all the pieces, it makes sense to go after a quarterback like Tom Brady instead of trying to re-sign Jameis. And as much as I like Jameis for the Buccaneers, I think it was just time for a change for them. Sometimes change is best. And they moved on to, of course, what can you say? You can't get much better than Tom Brady on the market right now.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, just 2 offers was shocking to me, though, that only 2 teams were really interested in them.
Now, that same day that we had Tom Brady announce he was leaving the Patriots and going to the Buccaneers, we had the Colts, who I thought I like Jacoby Brissett. I think he's a good quarterback. I think that a full offseason was just what he needed to kind of get himself situated. I mean, you figure that guy was in a terrible situation last year. I mean, within 2 weeks before the season starts, you find out that Andrew Luck's going to retire. You're thrown into the starting spot. And he was having a pretty solid season. And I even heard some people, I wasn't saying it, but I heard some people talking about possible MVP candidate until he got injured. And now they go out and they sign Phillip Rivers, who's leaving the LA Chargers after, 16, 17 years there. He's going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts. So what do you guys think about that move of the Colts going away from Jacoby Brissett and going to Phillip Rivers?
I'll let the ladies go first.
I thought that was crazy, dude. Phillip Rivers is so busted. I don't think he's going to do much for the Colts. There's not a lot of possibility like there is for Tom. So I feel like him changing teams isn't going to inspire hope in the offensive line with a new coach. It just doesn't have the same storyline as it does for Tom Brady joining a new team. And I mean, Phillip Rivers, what did he have? 23 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. He just wasn't himself. He wasn't this lightning piece to a strong offense. And he had a strong team. It wasn't as if he didn't have pieces to put together something that would have been great for LA. It just, for him, I feel like he was getting kind of lazy. He was just letting the pocket close in too quickly. I don't know. Oh, sorry. I'm having some like Charger fans on the.
What about you, Jeff?
As far as Rivers, I mean, to me, I expected that move to happen. I think when you look at the mock draft that I put out pre-free agency, I believe I didn't have the Chargers taking a quarterback in the first round because I believe they were going to get Rivers. One thing that's constant in the NFL are connections. When you have a connection somewhere along the line, that those bonds are hard to break. There's a connection to Frank Reich. There's a connection to the offensive coordinator that's there now. So once he became available, I thought it was just a matter of time before they closed in on him.
Yeah, no, I think that you got to remember the advantage that the Colts have is they have a boatload of money to spend, and they can still go out there and get some primetime players to help. And the cupboard's not bare. I mean, you got to hope that T.Y. Hilton stays healthy. Name escapes me, but their running back, his last name is Mack, is a really good young running back.
Marlon Mack, yes.
Yeah, studs all over the defense. But I'm with Ashmere. He holds the ball forever.
And he's going to have the ability to hold the ball behind that offensive line. You know, that offensive line does protect the quarterback. So,
you're right. Jacoby didn't get sacked a lot last year, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, put it this way. I think
neither did Luck the year before that.
Phillip Rivers is in a lot better spot this year than he was last year with the Chargers. I'll say that much. But I think if I was the Colts, I would have stuck with Jacoby. I would have just spent some money getting some weapons, maybe shut up my
I agree.
I don't think I would have gone after Phillip Rivers.
I feel like he's promising, right? He's got a good future, but now not anymore.
Yeah, and if he goes down, who's the backup? Because Jacoby's not going to sit there and be a backup quarterback. So you got to think about that too with the Colts. If Phillip Rivers is injuring anybody, but if he gets injured, who's his backup? Is it Jameis Winston?
Well, the beauty of it is they believe in Jacoby Brissett as their backup, and to me, I think he has the potential to be a full-time starter. Will he be an elite starter? I don't think he'll ever be an elite starter. I think he'll be a high-quality, very good starter. But I think that's what they're looking for right now is we're in position with the team that we have. We need somebody that's going to put us over the top. The coaches there still believe in what Phillip Rivers is. Is when you have a player that's his age, you look at it, is it the decline he suffered the last couple of years? Is it age? Was it the situation? We saw the San Diego team start to fall apart. You had the holdout of Melvin Gordon. So there were a lot of factors last year where you could possibly say maybe it wasn't all on Phillip Rivers. But when you look at the situation he's going into, as long as they continue to add pieces around him, if an aardvark can drive that offense the way with the amount of talent that they're putting around it.
No, I get you on that one. And before we get to the big story that happened today, of course, with Todd Gurley, how you get fired in your day off by the Rams, I want to talk about this guy, Nick Foles, man. You play for the Eagles. You go to he left at the Eagles. You get a big contract with the then St. Louis Rams. You get hurt. They trade you to the Kansas City Chiefs. You go to Kansas City. He took had a cup of coffee in Kansas City. You go back to the Eagles. You win a Super Bowl. You get this big money contract with Jacksonville. I think it was like the second or third play from scrimmage. You get sacked, collarbone injury again. And now in the offseason, you get traded to the Chicago Bears to compete against Mitchell Trubisky for the starting spot. I mean, what's your take on the journey of Nick Foles? Sounds like a 30 for 30 or a really good movie.
I feel bad, dude, because like you said, he beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. Like he made a name out there for the Eagles. And then all of a sudden, obviously Carson Wentz is their number one, so they had to go back to him. I personally think Foles could have done a little bit better for the Eagles this season, but that's my own take on that. And then for him to just get hurt and now just kind of fight for a spot in Chicago, I just think like the cards are not in his favor right now. 2020 is not in anyone's favor. So I don't know how it's going to go for him in these tryouts and everything and practices. I do hope he gets his starting spot because I think Trubisky is not doing what Chicago needs for them. And I also just think the Bears need a little more inspiration from a quarterback that's been there, that's been in a high pressure situation, that's been able to, lead an offense and just kind of take them to the end game, which is the Super Bowl. So I feel bad.
What about you, Jeff?
He's the perfect system quarterback. When you looked at him over the years, his best years were when he was in that system in Philadelphia. The first stint and the second stint. last year in Jacksonville, he came out and he had a solid start to that game before he got injured. His time in Kansas City was short-lived. He just didn't fit in that time with Andy Reid's system. But whenever he's in that system in Philadelphia, they somehow find a way to work his best traits and to hide the negatives with him very well. And he plays very well. He feels comfortable in it. The stuff that he's able to do, he just doesn't do anywhere else. Sometimes you get a guy like that. You can go all the way back to Mark Rippon. Couldn't play anywhere else but Washington.
Man, Mark Rippon, yeah.
But you know, some guys are just like that. You know, Brad Johnson couldn't play anywhere but in the West Coast offense. But you put certain guys in a system where they're comfortable, where their weaknesses are kind of hidden, their strengths show out, and they become a solid player that you can win games with. And in Philadelphia, he was able to do that. The question is now, yes, he may be familiar with Matt Nagy's system, but is he going to be able to execute it the way he did in Philadelphia? So that's going to be the biggest question. And plus, do they have the pieces around him for him to execute the way he needs to? Because he's not the most mobile guy.
Yeah, well, I think that Chicago, like Ashman was saying, Mitch was so bad last year, we didn't even know how good that offense could be. I mean, there's some players on there. You think about Robinson at receiver. They had Cohen was a great running back one year, and then last year, was he really that bad, or was the quarterback play just affecting him that much? So it's going to be interesting to see what that Chicago offense looks like, because we know with Khalil Mack and the rest of those guys they have on the defense, they're going to be in every game. It's just up to the offense to make some plays to lead those guys to a couple of victories, because their division is going to be really, really, really tough. Ashmere, I know that I think you're a fan of his. Cam Newton, what in the world is going on with this guy? I mean, you didn't ask for a trade. The team says you asked for a trade. We got goodbye videos and tweets coming out from the Carolina Panthers. They go ahead and sign Teddy Bridgewater to a pretty big contract. Obviously, Cam's not going to go back to that team. So where do you see him landing? Who's taking a chance on Cam Newton?
I feel like it's for Cam. He was such a star quarterback, and then he got injured, and I feel like he hasn't been the same. So it'd be cool for him to play somewhere that really needs, his kind of talent. I can't pick a team. I feel like I would say the Chargers, because they need somebody, but I don't know if he'll fit with that team. So I don't know. I'm going to turn it to Jeff, just because I feel like my perspective on Cam is like the way that he went to the Super Bowl and then got injured, and then his transition since then. I just feel like it's been hard to see him succeed, and I think that was his own fault, kind of. It was like when Derek Carr got hurt, he retracted himself. I feel like Cam did similar things, and I know you want to protect yourself, but yeah.
What do you think about Cam, Jeff?
It's that classic situation where a player gets hurt, comes back too soon, worried about his job, and gets hurt even worse. He had the shoulder injury, had surgery on it, forced himself back early, had the Lisfranc injury right after that, pretty much lost for the year. And by the time they won 4 in a row with the backup, they were already pushing Cam out of town. I mean, honestly, it doesn't shock me that they're moving on. You have a new administration. When that happens, there is no loyalty to the roster. The new GM, the new head coach, they're not married to a roster. They're going to make whatever changes they see fit, and that includes your starting quarterback. Yeah, the fact that they landed Teddy Bridgewater at the price that they landed him at, even though Cam's technically his last few years on his contract are not expensive compared to the guys that are signing now, it was just time for them to move on. And I'd rather see Cam Newton continue to stay there. I think Cam Newton can play at a high level still, much to the chagrin of many of the experts that say, "Oh, he's inaccurate. He's just a running quarterback." Cam Newton has proven with his play what he is, and unfortunately, the injuries the last couple of years have kind of robbed him of that. Can he get back to that? Is the biggest question, or will he evolve? Some quarterbacks evolve into something else. We've seen Brady from the beginning of his career evolve into something. We saw Steve McNair, who was that athletic quarterback, ran all over the place. But by the time he got to the last couple of years of his career in Tennessee and Baltimore, was a strict pocket passer, was a quick release guy, didn't hold the ball anymore because he couldn't move and couldn't take the hits. And with Cam, he's got to learn that my game has got to change. I can't be the guy that runs for 50 yards and runs over a linebacker in the process. Now he's got to evolve. become more cerebral at the line of scrimmage. For him, it's going to be hard because I don't think anybody at this point is going to make a trade for you. It's kind of hard to work a trade when people know the team is going to release you no matter what. They will just wait for you to get released. And his opportunities even worse now because when you look at the moves that were made, Tampa Bay going after Brady, Indianapolis going after Rivers, and you go down the list. Now, most of the teams that are dire need of a quarterback are in the top 5, top 10 of the draft. So when you look at it, he doesn't have really much opportunity to come into somewhere and start. Maybe New England if they want to give him a shot. And New England, we know, doesn't like to pay. So he's going to be in a rough situation when this eventually washes itself out, And when I think of quarterback needy teams, we talked about New England, Miami, the Chargers. I have Atlanta as one, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Pittsburgh, we all know why.
Atlanta, I got to hear this.
Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Detroit, and Washington. Right? And I know you don't want to hear that.
Man, it's going to be
and as much as I don't want to say it, because I actually like Dwayne Haskins in Washington, the vibe I'm getting is, once again, we talked about that new regime. Yeah. They're not married to him. So as far as Washington, do they draft Tua? That's going to be the big question. Detroit, they spent all year without Stafford last year. They've seen what happens when they don't have a quarterback. I have a feeling there will be a quarterback drafted this year for the Lions. So I don't see them signing a veteran. Jacksonville, they may bring in somebody to compete with Minshew. They may draft another one. Indianapolis, right now, they're set at quarterback. Pittsburgh, you're going to need somebody. If Ben isn't 100%, he may be in the same position that Cam's in next year.
And there's no spring chicken.
Yeah, and they don't have any faith in Rudolph or Hodges to lead through 16 games. So there may be some moves made in Pittsburgh in the draft. We expect Joe Burrow to go to Cincinnati. So that pretty much washes that situation out. And when you look at the Chargers, they've said Tyrod Taylor is their guy, which basically tells you they're drafting a quarterback. So he's not going to get a shot to go there. Miami, pretty much, you look at it, Ryan Fitzpatrick is their veteran. That's their veteran stopgap quarterback. So they're drafting a quarterback. And, of course, New England, right now, they're in love with Jarrett Stidham. So when you look at quarterbacks that are on the market, Jameis Winston, Cam Newton soon to be, Joe Flacco as of today, Andy Dalton in the future, these guys are going to sit around for a while before they find a home.
Now, I can't believe I forgot to start the show off with this. Ashmere, DeAndre Hopkins traded the Cardinals for like a janitor, a couple bottles of Gatorade, and an old program. What is your feeling in the trade? How does Bill O'Brien's key card still work to get in the facility? Over there in Houston. Craziness.
All I know is when I saw my rookie of the year prediction get that wide receiver, I was like, dude, Arizona's going to be so much more fun to watch now next year. I just think he's got way more weapons, and I don't know what's going on in the Texans facilities. I don't know if maybe they have something up their sleeves. I doubt it. Top 5 wide receiver just given away for nothing. I was laughing. I honestly sat in my phone just in awe of if this was a fake news headline. There's a lot of bored people at home that could be making something up, but it was just
Yeah, and they have shame on me for not having the draft order out in front of me. I know Jeff probably knows, but the Cardinals have a top pick coming up too in the draft. So they can still add on, make their team even better. But I just thought to give him away for almost nothing just made no sense to me at all. And then you had a guy like Stephon Diggs for the Vikings, or used to be for the Vikings. I'm a fan of his, but I think, I don't know, to me, he's not an elite receiver. He's good, but he's not elite. And the Vikings they gave away, they got a king's ransom from the Bills to get him on the team. And this is a guy that you look at Buffalo, some of the moves they made in the offseason. So you're going to have Diggs, you're going to have Brown they had last year. You still have Cole Beasley playing for the Bills, and then the rookie tight end they had last year, Knox, and you still have obviously Josh Allen calling the shots in Buffalo. So I understand what Diggs brings to the team, but they gave away a whole lot to get a guy that I think is, I'll say top 15, maybe top 10 in the NFL. And I even think maybe top 10 might be a stretch. I could probably come up with 10 guys I think are better than Stephon Diggs right now. What was your take, Jeff, just on that trade and all they gave away?
Well, it's not shocking to me. I mean, Minnesota wasn't going to give him up cheap. They were determined. And I think that kind of started the season before when he was chirping about being traded and people inquired. They weren't going to give him up cheap. Buffalo wanted a veteran receiver. I think they have a pretty young core up there. So other than Cole Beasley, so you need a proven veteran. Now, to me, he's still more of a number 2 than a number 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
But nevertheless, I think they got a productive player, and they did give up a lot for him. But that's what they believe. They're one more player away. Now, on the other side, whatever rift there was in Houston between Hopkins and Bill O'Brien, I mean, and this is and part of this, you have to look at the man. And when you're an executive in the NFL, and now that he wears both hats, and you get fleeced on one trade already. I mean, the Laramie Tunsil trade, a lot of people feel he got fleeced on.
He did.
Okay, you're a target because every GM is going to come at you with a low ball offer, get you to come up midway and go, "Hi, I got him again." And that's exactly what this feels like. Somebody came to him with a low ball offer, and he came up and said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll give you a third and a fifth." And he goes, "Yeah, I came out of there with 2 picks." Meanwhile, everybody else is going, "Well, we at least could have got a second or a first for it."
Yeah,
So
DeAndre Hopkins is elite. There's no conversation. He's top 10, top 5.
I mean, he was drafted first round in my fantasy league, so
Yeah, for a reason. Yeah.
You have a 100 catch receiver that doesn't even go for a first round pick. Now, most GMs wouldn't give him up for less than that. Some of them would want multiple first round picks for him. So it's one of those things where there had to have been something where he was just ready to move on. We know there was a contract situation that he didn't want to deal with. I know he was unhappy with his contract. He wanted it reworked, and that was part of the issue. But it's not that big an issue that I'm going to come up short at the table when it comes to draft picks. There's got to be something more than that.
And for him to still be, I just don't get. I still got a job, man. I don't get it. If any of us did that on our jobs repeatedly, that'd be either a stiff conversation or we'd no longer be working there.
He better not finish under 500 this year. I can guarantee you that he won't have that job.
Yeah, he's going to be unemployed. I know it's still early in the free agent process, and of course we have the draft coming up still. But a lot of teams are making moves, Ashmere. So who do you think is your early like team that's done the best so far in free agency? I know we're still early in the process, and of course we got the draft down the line. But I mean, teams like the Chargers are signing a lot of people, good players. The Bills. I know the Eagles are making moves. Who do you think so far this offseason has been hitting it the right way?
I'm just going to stick with Arizona, dude. I feel like Kyler Murray has so much potential. Last year, he played very well. Now he's got a variety of receivers. He loves to throw the ball. He loves to run the ball. I just think the way he's carrying himself is going to project a stronger outlook for the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know. I've liked Kyler Murray since day one. And so I'm kind of riding with that. I mean, the Raiders haven't done much. They did sign Marcus, my man. Yeah. But I don't know how much that's going to change for them. So I don't see – I would like the Raiders to make more moves than I could project them to be better. They do have a good number of draft picks too. So maybe they're just waiting for that point in time. But I'm going to stick with Arizona.
And who's winning the offseason game for you so far, Jeff?
I would say before the Tom Brady signing, I would have looked towards either Arizona, Baltimore, or even Carolina. But I got to go after that to Tampa Bay. And the reason would be the Tom Brady signing made such a big deal for these guys that adding in such a quarterback of that caliber with that talent around him allows them to focus on spending a lot of draft picks on that defense, adding a couple more free agents on the offensive line to help fill those holes there. They're going to be a much different team. And in 2020 than they were in 2019. So that's going to be one of the biggest things is you get a big free agent, a big piece like that covers up a lot of the holes for you. It allows you to do so much more in the draft, and you don't have to spend as much on multiple positions in free agency.
Yeah, I think for me, I'd have to go with the Raiders. Not the Raiders, excuse me. I'd have to go with the Ravens. All they're doing is just signing studs on defensive line, studs at linebacker. Because I think with Lamar Jackson, when you got Mark Ingram, their tight ends they have, even Hollywood Brown's a little bit on the small side, but he's a good, solid receiver. The defense need to get shored up, and they're going to have such a large rotation. I mean, they can go probably 6 deep on the defensive line. They can go about 4 or 5 deep at linebacker. So you can just keep rotating guys in and out of the lineup, which is what most good teams do anyway. So I think that the Ravens so far, I'm really impressed with them. And also I'm impressed with some of the things the Browns are doing. I mean, we knew Baker Mayfield was always running for his life last year. To get a good tight end, to get a good tackle to kind of protect his blind side and help him out a little bit on the offensive line was a solid move as well. So I would say Ravens and then the Browns right behind them. I mean, Tampa Bay to me is an easy one. And I told Ashmere yesterday, don't count out Antonio Brown and Tampa Bay. I'm trying to tell you, it may happen. Do not count out Antonio Brown playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would not be surprised at all.
It sounds like you're more defensive heavy and Jeff and I are more offensive heavy. Like we're focusing more on the way the offenses are going to play compared to how the defense is, because it is important to have stronger linebackers, and everything like that. But I feel like I'm always watching how the quarterback can utilize his weapons on his side compared to how the defense is going to protect or, block against another quarterback. So
yeah, well, I think
funny to hear your choices.
Tampa Bay with Tom Brady and the weapons he has with Godwin and having Mike Evans, and then you having Jones Jr. if he can stay healthy at running back. And then we didn't even talk about Todd Gurley being released today, which is just crazy to me. I mean, we talked about Cam Newton earlier. You think about Cam Newton, the guy that was the MVP, not about 4 or 5 years ago in the Super Bowl, how quickly things have changed. And then Todd Gurley with that mega contract, and the Rams got him. He's going to be a Ram for life. And he goes to the Super Bowl injured that they said he has a degenerative knee. And they're like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not going to cause a lot of problems. He was kind of in and out of the lineup last year, but they kept on saying it's not the knee. It's just the way that the offense is run. And now here we are. Todd Gurley has no team. So that's another guy that I think maybe his days of 25, 30 carries are over. But I would love to have a Todd Gurley on my team. You give him 10 carries. Yeah, he catches the ball at the backfield. If the knee is an issue, the way to solve that is don't give him a heavy workload. Play the kid in spots. He still has talent. I mean, he's one of the best running backs in the league, not even 2 years ago. Just crazy to me how quickly things change in the NFL.
Well, it comes back to, once again, you're talking about the only sport that has that hard cap. There is no going over. Mm-hmm. And this was kind of going to happen when they signed him to the big deal. They signed Cooks to the big deal. They signed Goff you can't pay all these guys. They signed Sue. They signed Peters and Talib. All of these contracts added up. So there was going to be a point where if you didn't win that Super Bowl that you paid for, with all these guys, the fire sale was going to begin, and we're starting to see the beginning of that.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you on that one. And then, of course, we had Drew Brees re-signed with the New Orleans Saints as well. It's not really a big shock. I think we all knew that was going to happen. I know that Ashmere's favorite team is was the Raiders. Now they moved to Vegas. So I'm not sure if she's a Vegas fan. But I know she's not hard for the 49ers. And I've never even asked Jeff who his favorite NFL team is. So I guess I'll start with you, Jeff, because I have no idea who your favorite team is. What's the 1 or 2 things you want to see your team do in the offseason to get better? Like who do you want to sign, or maybe what you want to see them pick in the draft? Not particular player, maybe a position that you want to see get better in the draft.
Well, I've kept it kind of jaded since I've gotten to scouting, because I don't want anybody to say that I'm showing favoritism. But I've always been, and you're going to hate me for this one, because I've always been a Cowboy fan. So
why do you do that?
So one thing I would like to see Dallas do is address the depth at safety. It's been a lot of things where they've gone late draft picks. They've gone with undrafted guys, stopgap guys they've signed for bargain prices. At this point, it's time to spend a high draft pick in the back end of that defense. When they've had their best defenses, it's usually because they've had somebody back there who was really, really good, who was a potential Hall of Famer. One just got in Cliff Harris. For them to call Darren Woodson's number for the Hall of Fame. But when you think about it, I think the only safety that they drafted pretty high that didn't work out for him was Roy Williams. And even he had a productive career for a few years when he was in Dallas. But it's about time that they start investing in the back end of that defense. Investing in the corners is one thing, but you have to have guys in the middle of the field that can play football. And they've been doing it with guys that have been patchwork. They haven't been special. It's time to have a special player, either that's going to be a guy that's going to play in the box and be able to play over the top, or just have a guy who's special over the top. Nothing like having an Ed Reed back there.
Those don't grow on trees. What about you, Adam?
What's my what?
What do you want to see the Niners do, either like in free agency or via the draft? Like what position? Like obviously being an offensive person, like do you think they need to get a tight end, a wide receiver? Like I thought Sanders would come back to the 49ers, but now I'm hearing rumors about possibly going to Dallas. So, I mean, if you lose him on that 49ers offense, I think they need to look at a wide receiver or stay there where they are.
I mean, I think the only thing that defeated them this year was themselves. So I think the team is doing very well. They had the Super Bowl in the bag until they got their egos came in. You know, that Bay Area ego just showed up, took them out, and they lost. So I don't think the Niners need too much. Their defense is strong. They did make a little bit of mistakes here and there, but it would be nice to have an additional receiver in the case Sanders doesn't come back. So I guess that's my one adjustment. But I personally think the Niners played well this season. I mean, they had their support on their back, right? And they had their egos in the sky, so they lost. So, yeah, I think they played fine.
Yeah, for the Redskins, we just need help for Haskins. Weapons. We got one receiver. We need some more receivers, tight end, offensive line. That's a whole separate podcast talking about
if Haskins is still your quarterback.
If
Haskins is still your quarterback.
Yeah, true story. I'm hearing Cam Newton because Ron Rivera is our coach, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I can get behind Cam Newton in DC. I'm not sure if I can get behind that. And I'm still blown away that Joe Flacco, just how far him and Cam Newton, man, the fall from grace is
sure.
Like, it was quick. I mean, I feel like Joe Flacco was just beating the Patriots in New England to go to the Super Bowl, like 4 years ago, maybe. Just how quickly things turn around. No job for him. No job for Todd Gurley. So we can definitely say that the NFL so far has been crazy this free agency period, and we haven't even gotten to the draft yet. And with this coronavirus, it's thrown everything for a loop as far as like how people can get contracts. You can't do physicals. You can't visit facilities. I mean, as of today, the draft is still on. Will that change? Not really sure. I know that you're a big NFL draft person. Obviously, you're a scout, Jeff. What are some of the things you're looking forward to in this upcoming draft?
I'm interested to see what happens at the top of it. I think that's going to set the tone for your draft weekend. So far, by the way, all public events have been canceled for the draft, but the draft is still on. They're looking to keep it. I don't think they're going to change the weekend. What they want to do is kind of figure out technology-wise how to do this without having too many people around. So I guess you won't see the guys come up and getting their jerseys and hats on stage this year. I think it's just going to be more of a virtual type event. But as far as the draft itself, I think need is going to come into play early and with the top of the board. And I know you're a Redskins guy, so you guys are going to set the tone for this draft. What you guys do after the first pick, everybody's expecting Burrow to go number one. If you guys take Chase Young, the fight that happens behind you guys is going to be legendary because everybody's going to wants their hands on Tua, or is at least tipping that they want their hands on Tua, is going to be a fight to see who climbs ahead of who as far as quarterback needing teams. If you guys decide that Haskins isn't your guy, you take a quarterback, whatever quarterback you take, whether it's Tua, whether it's a Love from Utah State. I'm not hearing about the kid from Oregon that high anymore. And it's shocking because last year he was the number one quarterback in the draft, everybody said, and all of a sudden now that sentiment has changed. All of a sudden people got him falling in the first round. So I think I have about 4, possibly 5 quarterbacks going in the first round. the way things are going. I think the quarterback teams that have resigned themselves to going with a young quarterback are going to take their guy early. And then don't be surprised if somebody jumps back up late in the round to take Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma. So, I mean, that fifth-year option is a powerful thing when it comes to young quarterbacks. So that's one of those things. And I think that's kind of the thing where Dallas is like, man, if we could have gotten Dak Prescott earlier in that draft, we wouldn't have to worry about tagging him this year. He would have had his fifth-year option. So I think what you're going to see, whatever trades happen, it's going to start there and it's going to trickle down. And then you'll see guys that were slated high, some of those offensive linemen, if those quarterbacks start going early, those offensive linemen are going to be a fight. The defensive players, the corners, Jeff Okudah, the pass rushers, you're going to start to see all of those guys, teams jumping around the board trying to get their hands on a certain guy before somebody else gets them. So it's going to be a real interesting weekend, but it starts with the Redskins.
Should be exciting. I like the idea of a virtual draft. I think that'd be kind of cool. Get yourself your iPhone set up. I'd have the ultimate party. My party would be lit at my house. I knew I was going to get drafted. Man, we're getting multiple cameras. We're getting the cater. That's kind of cool. No water right there.
It's gonna be like the ultimate fantasy football draft.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like how I would do it. I knew it was supposed to be quarantined, but I didn't invite everybody. That'd be a heck of a party. I'm about to become a millionaire too. I need to have the more the merrier. The more the merrier. Mm-hmm. Who are like some of the things you're looking forward to as we continue the free agency period before we get out of here, Ashmere, as far as like, and what I mean by that is like, are you interested to see where Jameis Winston goes, or you're interested to see what happens in the draft at number 2 with the Redskins? Like, what are you looking forward to the most as the offseason keeps on rolling along?
I am interested to see where Herbert goes, like you mentioned, because he literally was top, even though this year I knew he was not that great. Joe Burrow is far better than him. So I'm interested to see who picks up Herbert. And I am interested to see what happens to Jameis Winston, because although he was very bad last year, started the year with a pick 6, ended the year with the pick 6, he just keeps his bad rhythm going. I want to see if somebody is able to mold him into a better quarterback, a smarter quarterback, just take the tackle if it's coming towards you. Don't always think you have to get the ball out of your hands, because that's not really the best thing to do 99% of the time. And people were noticing that Jameis is just throwing fly balls and anybody can catch them. So they were looking towards that, pickup. But I'm also interested to see who drafts stronger cornerbacks and offensive linemen from, this college class, because like you've been mentioning, a lot of teams need help on the defensive end. And a lot of teams like the Niners are kind of missing a strong cornerback. And I feel like they'll have enough time to train them to kind of follow through as to, be aware of the quarterback's passing and just be present in those situations where they can make a difference, right? And just kind of be stronger on defense. So those are kind of the 2 things I'm looking for. Just Justin, because, he's from my school, so I need to make sure things go well, because Marcus was doing okay and then he plateaued. And so I hope that same thing doesn't happen with Justin.
I think on a sneaky tip, Marcus Mariota might have a chance in Vegas. I think if Carr doesn't come back with a vengeance this year, I would not be shocked to see Gruden pull the trigger and put Marcus Mariota in, because like Jeff was talking about earlier in the show, he reminds me a little bit of a more athletic version of a Brad Johnson. He can do the bootleg. He can get the ball out there quickly. He can run when he has to, which is kind of what Brad Johnson did. And Brad Johnson got a Super Bowl ring. I'm not saying that's all going to happen, but I'm saying if Mariota gets a chance to play, I wouldn't be surprised. I think Gruden's going to give Carr all the time and all the chances, but if he's getting frustrated, which we know he does, I can see him pulling the hook quickly and being like, hey, it's your show, Marcus. Let's see what you can do. Because there's going to be a lot of pressure. Brand new city, trying to establish a new culture, all that good stuff. They're going to want results and results early.
Sure.
For sure. Well, man, thank you guys both for joining me today. Good conversation. It's still, and Bill O'Brien still has a job. I don't understand. It blows my mind that the Texans are going down this route with him. Todd Gurley, unemployed. NFL never ceases to amaze. And with all this virus talk, this is just the jolt of energy my sports soul needed with some NFL action. Thank you, Tom Brady and the NFL for doing what you're doing. And we'll definitely be back next week. We'll talk some more football for sure. Make sure you guys follow us at Nuts and Bolts SP on Twitter, all social media platforms, and of course, nutsandboltsports.com for some great articles. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ashmere. Good times.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely.